So Mike, the reason why I'm sitting here chatting with you here today at Killington is to begin looking at the industry from the 30,000 foot level and look at what has been holding us back, what opportunities do we have looking ahead, and ultimately how do we move the needle. Why don't we start with getting some background about you? You started out at Deloitte & Touche. How did you get from there to being president and GM of Killington Pico?
Yeah, mine's not the normal path, I would say. So I actually grew up the youngest of 6 boys in New Jersey, and we didn't ski. I did a couple high school trips with my high school, going to Mountain Creek, or back in those days Vernon Valley. But anyway, as I got into my 20s, I was an accounting major. I worked at Deloitte & Touche. I was in finance in Boston. And one of our clients was the Dina Star Rosano Group, and they were based in Burlington, Vermont. Okay. So that's how it worked out. So
you're coming in terms of your background, obviously, is in finance. So when you're looking at the decisions that you have to make, you're keeping a strong eye on the bottom line and the dollar signs.
Yeah, I think that's been my focus. I think it's broadened now that I'm running the resort. One thing I think I've always had a good perspective is, since I didn't grow up skiing, a lot of people that are in the industry grew up as racers, as young kids, and they've lived on the mountain and they have a different perspective. Sometimes I think I still feel like I have a blue skier perspective because I didn't grow up that way. And I think sometimes I try to bring that out and say, okay, well, let's not just talk to that small group that's already converted. How do we get to the rest?
Yeah. Whether it's at Killington or nationally, where do you think price fits in, and what is the future of price in this whole discussion of the perception and the reality, in terms of barriers to the sport?
It's definitely a challenge. That's definitely at the top of the list for barriers, I think. I think what I would say, though, is we have a lot of programs for first-time people and getting into the sport. There's a lot of deals out there, right. For people that know about it. But I think we'd be kidding ourselves to think that if we just lowered the price, that then everything's going to get better. Right. Part of the problem and the reality of the business is it's a really expensive business, right? So the new lifts are $7-10 million, snowmaking, everything else. It's just a really capital-intensive business. Yeah. So, I want to be careful to not say, hey, if we just change price, we'll solve everything, right? Because even when prices were lower, that wasn't the solution, right? To me, price is more related to value. If people will spend money on things they value, and how do we show them that we're providing good value and it's such a great time that it was worth it? Right? People only think things are expensive if they didn't think they get an equal amount of value for it.
Yeah, because do you think, for instance, the Epic Pass, a big game changer out west, and now it's bleeding into the east as well. That is, the question is that growing doing anything to grow the sport, or is it just dividing the pie in a different way?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? I think on pricing, I don't know if anybody knows the answer. On the other hand, when they have the Epic Pass there, they're also at $170 for a lift ticket, right? So it's not like it's overly accessible for the day skier, right? If you haven't fully committed, and if we're talking about growing the sport, how many people want to jump into a sport and automatically go buy a season pass? So, I would argue, I'm not sure that's the greatest way to grow the overall pie, right? It's been good for the group that already skis. If you ski or snowboard, wow, you got great value out of that pass and the Icon Pass. I think those are great. And, to me, I don't think there's, like on a lot of these solutions, there's no easy answer. And I think we need to get people in, show them how great a sport it is, bring them into the lifestyle, to experience being in the mountains and all the great things that brings. And I think then the value piece becomes less of an issue, I think, as they get into the sport and find the deals and those types of things.